How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Bitcoin update. In the past 24 hours, we've seen multiple breakouts, which resulted in fake outs over the 886 fib level. I've been talking about this level at length for months now, not only in the Discord, but here also on the YouTube channel. 104, we've rounded it up to 105k. Also, when we were given this wick, we now have a new level, the new highest point of the range, 105.7k. I've created a box between this 1k level, zooming out to the daily time frame. Basically, when this breaks, my expectation becomes these targets. So anywhere between 120, 140, and maybe as high as 160k. But before that point, this is not the case. So the run up here could actually be corrective. You could argue that this is a rising wedge, and that could be calling for a continuation down. That could be argued that it is the bear market. This could be a dead cat bounce into there and we continue lower. And I have given some examples, although we do know long term Bitcoin tends to go up. So if Bitcoin is going to continue in this bull cycle, then this level will, of course, break and we will see those higher price targets I've just spoken about. But if this level is resistance, this is essentially potentially where it could be the macro lower high. Without breaking this level, these targets are actually not valid. So we can have in the back of our mind ready, we know when this level is support, those are our targets. But up until that moment, the risk and the path that it's technically on is that this move is a corrective move up, looking for bearish continuation lower. And I know Bitcoin's meant to go up long term, so all it needs to do is just break out, just like this previous range. It eventually broke out of the 886 and it went to its targeted area. You can see it went between the 1272, 1618 and 2 fib. So that would be, you can see that it says there is something as high as 188k, but with the trend that it's been on, it's anywhere between 120, 140 and 160. But there were many moments in that where it pumped to the 886 and new lows resulted. So even though eventually in the end it broke the 886 out of the range to hit those targets, you can see if I measure this new low that it created, it pumped into the 886, so we don't see these targets, and then we went to new lows. Same thing again, a low was put in, we think it's the bottom, pumps into the 886, we don't get the target between the 1272 and the 2 fib because we don't break the 886. The pump into it is not good enough. And I've made some Twitter posts today speaking about that. So if we go over, make sure you're following me. The link is in the description of this video. Just type this in, Louis_crypto. And if we head over to those updates, on the May the 12th, I made this post. This is where I'm most cautious, as I explained in those previous videos. And then here's a comment saying, why are you cautious? Looks like Bitcoin's perfectly bounced off the 786. And it's because when you're taught about the Fibonacci's, you're taught that the reversal wave begins once the 618 or the 786 breaks, but through experience, and me also, I used to believe that myself, but through experience I've just seen you can have fake outs at the 886 and still continue lower. So the reverse wave is not triggered until that's broken. Look at how many fake outs there have been on Bitcoin in the past 24 hours alone, let alone the past week. This is the daily, so each one's a day. But as I already showed on the lower time frames in this area, over the past day there were 2 fake outs, here and here. We even made a new high, guys, 107k. So you could argue that's a new level that needs breaking in the future. But this will be the precursor. So by breaking this, I'm pretty sure we will of course break that, because by breaking this we're clearing the 104 105k level. So I would already be targeting these higher price targets. But going back to the other post, I'm seeing a lot of weakness in altcoins. I will make some altcoin videos today, so stay tuned on the channel. But yeah, I've started to see some more people talking about this example. So this scenario I've spoken about at length for months in the Discord. This is technically in play until the macro 886 105k actually becomes support. So we need it to break, and if there's any dump back down, once it's broken, if there's any dump back down as it's previously resistance here, we want it to act as support. So if we see Just like previously, we don't want it to come back under this level. Even just a retest of here for continuation would have been good enough. So if we ever see a movement up like here to the previous all-time high, come back down, we want this area to act as support to continue higher. That's confirmation that the reversal wave is at play. That's also confirmation, if we zoom out once again, that this path is invalid, because we can argue and sit here and say what happened over here was a market cycle. Let me get a picture of that for you right now. So this is the market cycle chart, and because Bitcoin actually dumps the least, it's going to show this, but the dump down is not going to be as violent. It will be a lot clearer to envision this on altcoin charts. It'll be a lot clearer to see on altcoin charts, but Bitcoin not being as volatile, is still going through the same moves though. And something that I noticed with Bitcoin throughout the 6 years I've been analyzing is that there tends to be a lot of false highs. So here we had a new high. It's breaking out. Imagine a solid green candle up there, and then it's all taken away. Look at that dump from there. This also happened at the previous bear market, the top of the bull market, sorry. And then you can see it was a false high. Even on the micro level, we made a breakout through this high, which was 66, went as high as 68. So you actually see the candle closed through that. So this is very bullish. And then the micro double top here eventually formed. If I show you what happened with the 886, you can see it was cleared, but it never was used as support. That's what we need to see if it ever dumps back down. Looking at it hit the 172 right now, that's 120k. That's saying we could pump to close to 120k, still go down and lose the trend, the breakout, because it's all about that 886. We need to see that protected. If we want the reversal wave to sustain, well, once it's broken, the reversal wave is at play. We expect these targets, and once it's lost, well, we only had these targets in mind once that level is broken. So then if it's lost, well, this is not happening. And it's just as simple as that. It is genuinely as simple as that. Don't need to overcomplicate it more than that. If you want to get educated, or if you just want to be in my community so you're getting constant updates from myself, then check out the links in the description. I've got a new website. So yeah, I'll see you over there if you are interested. But you can see over here also, we broke out the 886 on the macro level. Didn't manage to actually sustain into the 172 because we saw the micro failure. But when we zoom out to the macro levels, we can see that the 886, which was used as support to break out, was then lost and confirmed as resistance. So this needs to be used as the pivot point to break out of the 886 again. So if we ever lose it, we're not hitting those targets unless we break back above. And unfortunately, as you can see here, it didn't actually break back above to continue to those higher price targets. Eventually in the future, we know that level broke, and it looked quite interesting. Funnily enough, look what level was flipped into support through the last year, which was 2024. That 1 year long correction where alt went down 70, 80, some is down bad as 90% over the last year. And we can see that that correction was pretty much just turning the macro 886 into support. So as we've come into meeting these targets, that's completed. That's why we've seen that correction. And when we look at the market cycle, we have that bottoming out structure. So we have the bearish pattern, slightly different because, again, I explained with Bitcoin, it can put new higher highs and false highs, showing you some examples. But it's all about that 886 level. Didn't come back down to hold its support, actually lost it again. So it was a false high. But here never even breaks the 886 at the complacency stage. And you can see in Bitcoin, it was a double top. Here it's a lower high double top. And then you get this bottoming out structure. And here it looks quite like a inverse head and shoulders pattern. You're just trying to spot a bullish pattern pretty much. And we've got the bearish pattern and the bullish pattern. So we're breaking out again. But the risk is that by completing that market cycle, if over here, and we're getting out of that, we saw the rally all the way back up to the highs. The risk is that this dump here, even though it's the completed market cycle, could that all have happened inside of this? Could that whole market cycle just be this first move down? Could the move up that we're seeing right now be part of the complacency stage but knowing that Bitcoin can put new all-time highs and actually break out, but then come back under something like this and then lose the 80. Bitcoin has done this in the past. I've given you examples here. It actually went slightly higher and then it still went lower. And the last bull market top, it went higher, but eventually lost the 886 and 786 fib area. So this is the risk at the moment. We've essentially met the first targeted area. You can see where it's calling for next. That's why I'm saying between 120 and 160k. Got confluence here at 100, we'll just call it 150k. But this is just not going to happen if we're not seeing this level broken. So we can have that in the back of my mind. I've been accumulating Bitcoin with that picture in mind. I've been buying all through here, all the way down, all the way back up. I've got daily recurring purchases. I got weekly recurring purchases. And I also, on top of that, buy when there's a decent move, whether it's up or down. So I have staples on the side for that also. So regardless of the market conditions, I will be buying Bitcoin, even if the bear market, even if we go down from here. And this is actually just this completed market cycle down here that's meant to take us through the 886 into these higher price targets might fail because we could be actually in the complacency stage. And we've seen in the past, Bitcoin can still be in the complacency stage after putting new all-time highs if it fails to hold this area support for that continuation higher. If this is then used as resistance, that's how a move like this forms in the first place. It's basically by losing this as support, because by doing so and flipping it back into resistance, these are no longer targets. Remember that they only become targets once this is broken, and if ever lost and confirmed as resistance, they are no longer targets. Guys, hopefully this was informative for you today. I'm going to keep an eye on the Bitcoin chart. Obviously, we need to focus on the short-term moves as well, and we are seeing fake outs in the past 2 days, just showing that this level brings long-term consequences, and that's why the whales or the market manipulators are going to step in and play around with everyone's emotions in this area. By holding this as resistance and never breaking out, we will never see those targets, and there's big risk this could be the complacency stage and could still see a bear market coming out of it. It's crazy that they're so drastically different, the circumstances, but that's why you're seeing the manipulation here. That's why it's slowed down. And now, as one of my Twitter posts said, I'm seeing a lot of weakness in alts with this Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin fake outs. If Bitcoin doesn't start pumping from here, we'll see a bigger altcoin correction. And even if I briefly go over a coin like HBAR, you can see it really needs to reverse from here. It's starting to lose the moving averages. Coin like Quant here is broken out the moving averages. We can't see it falling back under like Ondo has done. Look at that. It broke out the 200 EMA. It has an inverse head and shoulder target. Back where there was macro support and resistance, it looks like the market cycle has completed as there was that complacency stage I was talking about all the way back in February. So I've been talking about this for many, many months. This was all in my Discord community at the beginning of February, end of January, in fact. So everyone's been kept well up to date. And there's this bullish pattern showing that it's going through this stage over here. But just because that's completed, it just calls for that move up. And yes, we're meant to expect these new higher highs. But again, it's all dependent on Bitcoin. This coin could move up into here, fail, and still continue lower. This is what everyone needs to understand. In fact, I was saying this as early as back over here with a much smaller Fibonacci at the time, saying we could pump into 199, sorry, $1.99 and still go lower. We didn't even pump as high as that, and we still went lower. So it's all about that macro 886 for every single coin, but the one that matters the most is obviously Bitcoin. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please do subscribe, like, comment, share it if you can. It's really appreciated. It does bump up the algorithm. I'm going to be making some more altcoin videos today as well. If you want to join my community for more educational content, check it out. I also do live Q&As in there as well.